questions from yesterday that while everything started. Let's go and show my screen. I'm now on air. Ooh, I feel so professional. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of my system, let's actually go and move forward to, with what we're actually going to have a look at and start covering today. Now, like I said, we are a little bit behind in what we're doing, but we have gone and covered the POS setup, the POS setups, and some of the other the hardware setup, the reinitialization of hardware details is covered. Now I'm going to go through things like our payment type setup, product groups and products, UOM groups, UOMs, UOM groups, price lists, margin protection, and then we're also going to have a look at store setups, as well as we're also going to try and dive into the ginormous pile of stuff that's over here that we're just going to go and get on with it. Fortunately, we are going to actually, what we lost in the beginning, we're going to gain it. We're going to gain at the end because a bit further down, a lot of the stuff that we were looking at goes and pops up over here. So yeah, for instance, City Access Knowledge Portal, which we went through earlier this week. So, all right, we'll have a chance to catch up then. Now, okay, so let's go and start this by having a look at, and let's go start this and have a look at and get a start with things like our payment type setup. We can then go and have a look at, start having a look at the rest of it, and we can move on there. So payment types are over here, administration, financial payment type. And in fact, just one other thing I want to point out before we actually dive into payment types is over here is there is actually this little search bar up here. Now this search bar is for your entire iVend product. And in fact, even before I dive even more into this, there's just one other thing I do want to go and point out is questions. If you have questions, go type them out. I will answer them as soon as I see them, which might not be instantaneous. I do realize that. So for you guys who do not have a question, you see me going back and having to answer something that we've just covered, please, a little bit of patience. But otherwise, yeah, questions. I enjoy questions because they basically let me know that you guys are actually, one, listening to me, and two, that it's that actually you want to know more about the system and that I'm not just speaking to a dead mic. So questions, please, more and more. They are good. The worst thing that could happen with a question is I say I'll get back to you, or the other thing I might say is we'll come to that in a later session, like for instance the mobile POS setup. That's pretty much where we'll go with that one. Okay, so just over here with the search bar. Now this search bar is if you want to go find a specific menu in here. So for instance, if I wanted my retail profile, I type in retail and you press enter and it goes and shows me all the things where retail pops up and retail profiles right up there. So if you're looking for something, I do realize that initially, particularly if you get into retail config, there are a lot of things over here. If you don't have your screen resolution cranked up like I do, then you can go get lost. Particularly you start getting to operations, inventory, and there are a lot of stuff. There are a lot of bits and pieces in here that's not always immediately obvious where something is, and you don't really feel like going Control F1 right there. Yes, do not forget Control F1. For the love of all that is retail, do not forget Control F1 because otherwise you will be lost. You don't feel like going into here and you don't feel like going and saying, oh, well, okay, it's, oh, hang on, it's under operations. Oh, wait, no, it's over, and looking for it that way. You can just use the search over here. It'll take you right to exactly where you're looking for. The only issue I do have with it is that you'll never learn where it is. So, for instance, like I typed in retail, but for instance, if I went and I typed in hardware, I might never learn that precisely where it is. I mean, if it pops up in a couple of places. Fortunately, we now go and actually put up the section it's under, so it will actually say retail config. But in a lot of ways that does also mean that you don't always exactly know where things are. But as you learn the system, you learn where things go. So back to what I was saying over here, which is now we're going to payment types. And we did cover currencies. We did cover exchange rates yesterday. We did cover tax and tax condition setups and surcharges and banks. So now that we've done all of those, I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to create a new payment type quite specifically for one of the other different types over there. We'll go and we'll see which ones they are now. But you can see over here, first off, before I go into the next screen, something that's very important about this screen is that over here, it lists the display order. Now the display order over here is linked to the actual, if I go to payments over here, is linked to where it appears over here. So that is something that's also quite important. Your display orders need to be set. Once your display orders are set, it'll basically set which F key is attached to which specific order, to which specific thing over here. So let's just go back, and I'm going to go new on this one. And let's just go through and we'll actually have a look at some of the different setups that we can do here. So first off, code is whatever you want to make it. I mean, and I'm going to select one from the actual drop-down list here and we'll determine what we want to go with. So, and you see on the drop-down list that we have things like cash, check, credit card, the custom payment type if nothing else fits. Okay, the custom payment type, if so the custom debit card, EBT, right, electronic bank transfer, gift certificate, store credit, foreign currency, on account, travelers checks, and vouchers. So we are pretty comprehensive. We are pretty comprehensive in what we've got. If the loyalty is active, then you'll also see that loyalty goes and pops up over here as a payment type, which is something that we've got coming up in the upcoming lessons. But you'll see it's got all of these over here automatically. But we do realize that even with all of these, you will still perhaps need one that's called custom. But the thing I just want to show you as we go and we switch through it is that you'll see that the different fields actually start to go and change, not so much for debit card, but certainly as I go down, there you go, gift certificate, you can go see some of these fields become available, enable or disable themselves. And that is quite specific because that is to go and say that those are fields that are relevant to that specific payment type. We do realize as well that there are certain cases where you might want to change things. That's why we do give you the option to go custom, which is what I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to call this one custom. And let's go custom. Actually, this one over here I'm going to call GBP. There you go. All right. So, and I'll show you why in a second, because if I've gone custom, then I can actually go over here and I can actually go select a different currency. So I do know that one of the drop downs over here is foreign currency. That's also available. If I want to set a specific currency as a payment type, then I'll go custom and then I can select it there. Next up, counted. Okay, counted. This is one that you guys, this is where we start to go see things that when we set up in the currencies come through. Remember that in the currencies, and I'm just going to quickly open it up. So let's go to USD. In the currencies, we've got the details over here. Those details go, and remember the details are like, for instance, 1 cent. Okay. As you go and you add more, as you add these in, you can go and divide up your different currency types, and if I go back to here, you can go say on your counted, do you actually want to, one, do you want to count it, and two, what sort of count do you want on it? If it's counted, then you can go say, is it a summary count, which means you go and you say, I've got 400 pounds or whatever it is. Otherwise, in detail, you go and you say, well, I got 2 20s and 150 and 120 different £1 coins. So that is also over there. A display order. Now this is something that I pointed out to you in the previous screen. This is where you go and you actually set where it appears on over here. So, and we can go, cash, credit card, gift card, coupon, store credit, all the rest of it. They can be set over here. Right, and well, one, they can be set over here, and two, you can also set where they appear over here. Now, typically, something like a specific currency is obviously going to be further down. And the next thing I do normally get is, if these things are attached to F keys, are you only limited to 12? No, you can go more than that. It might show as F13, but there is no F13 key on the keyboard. So yeah, and this is the entire reason why we do touchscreen, because touchscreen, you don't really care about the F keys. So, haha. So that can then carry on, and that will then be set up over here. And next up, we're going to move across to active, because obviously this is something that does appear. Not so much, obviously, something like checks. Well, checks is one that I see that is now being deactivated, depending on where you are in the world. I know that, in, for instance, Kenya, you guys still use a lot of checks. I know out here in South Africa that is fallen by the wayside. In fact, I can't really remember the last time I got a check. The last time I got a check was around about 10 years ago. 10, 12 years ago, to be honest. And I've never seen one since. Having said that, they still exist. I do know this because we do get calls and asked for it. So yeah, checks are still out there. And I'm sure you guys have gone and found and experienced these as well. I know a lot of ERPs still support check printing because that's what they do. In America, checks are huge. Out here, not so much. But checks are kind of falling a bit by the wayside with check fraud. Moving on. Next up, default amounts. Now, this -1 over here, yeah, I love this, -£1, yes. Obviously, there is a default amount that is going to be associated with this. So, and this more falls into lines with things like your loyalty amounts. So, are you going to automatically spend $10? I mean, is there a default amount that needs to go in? $10, $20, you know, if you're using out here, well, just to name some of the common South African ones, you got Discovery Miles, eBucks. Oh, now here's one that's probably a bit more worldwide, is Avios, or your British Airways Air Miles or stuff like that. You know, those kind of things that, yeah, they have to be, they are spent in certain ways, and you can set that over here to be exactly how you want it to go. Next one up is minimum maximum amounts. So minimax, it's pretty straightforward. Does it need to be authorized or not? And this over here is a very interesting little checkbox, because this basically goes and says, this over here basically activates or deactivates whether you need to be integrated through to a payment provider. And we'll come over to payment processes and things like that a bit later. Well, sorry, I've skipped one. Okay, use test payment processor would be the test one. Authorized is if you want to be authorized. It doesn't need to be authorized by management. So typically authorized, I see that with checks. Or I have seen that with checks, or at least in the check setup. Is it refundable or not? This is actually quite a big one, because, and you'll see over here, the way I've set this up as a custom with GBP, this one is not refundable. So I don't actually give refunds in this specific currency. If I am going to refund, it'll be refunded as store credit or something else, which we'll come to later. Okay. Require signature. Yeah. Well, I think that, yes, require signature. I think that's pretty straightforward, to be honest. Print payment receipt. That is a separate payment receipt. Guys, some places they do require this. With print payment receipt, it's you'll see that there's the normal receipt, and then there's a second receipt that comes from your credit card company. Some credit card, I shouldn't say credit card company, because everyone thinks of MasterCard and Visa when I say that, comes from your payment gateway. That's the one. Payment gateway. Yes, those are the ones. So they will come from there. And some of them print automatically from the credit card machine itself. Typically, you need this in an integrated environment where you need to go set out a different payment receipt, as well as you also typically end up needing this also more on your fiscal printer side, where you need to go and have a specific fiscal printer printouts. And with that, you can also set how many payment receipts it's meant to print. Typically out here in South Africa, I see it prints 2. So there's one for the one that goes into the cash drawer, one that goes into the one that you get as the customer. Does it need to open the cash drawer or not? In this case, I'm going to say yes, because I'm actually taking in money. Typically for credit card, that would not be ticked. The next one over here is rounding. You know, how do you round? Do you round to 500? And when I say, okay, to explain, round to 500 will be rounding to a cent or pence at the moment. So right, 5 pence. Round to 10 hundreds, round to 10 cents. Round to 1. as round to the nearest whole value, so £1 in this case. Round to the nearest £10, £50 or £100. I know getting towards the end of this scale with pounds, it doesn't really make sense, but once you get to, let me see, I think in some of the places like you end up with, like in Uganda, particularly back in the bad old days of the Zim dollar, you would have needed to round to the nearest 100 millionth or something like that over there, which we don't really cater for, but they are in dollars, so they're on USD, so that's fine. Does this one integrate with the ERP or not? If you are in an unplugged system, then this one doesn't really matter. If you're in a plugged system, then yes, this one is going to matter. There are some that you might not want to integrate with the ERP, but that's up to you, and that's up to certain situations. It's there because we give you the option. We'd rather have you have the option than not have the option, and then there's a problem. So we'll go there with that. Next up is treat as on account. So does it go? Is it part of an account or not? And also, information tender does require manager authorization as well as authorization for refund. So there's also ones you can put in there. Finally, mask the card number. Guys, this is very, very important these days. Is if you're working on an integrated system and it's integrated to, say, the Innovation Destiny switch is what they call it, the problem is that it will actually go and record the credit card number in iVend, but because, fear not, we are PCI certified. Woohoo! That means that we do things like we actually mask the card number. And now, for instance, for loyalty payments, you might not want to do that, or you might want to do it. It depends on on what sort of loyalty system. But for instance, credit cards, mask the number. Oh yes, mask the number. Allow overtender. So in this case, I am going to allow overtender because this is GBP. This is actual pounds currency. I'm taking into cash. So what is the overtender rate? So can I do amount or percent? Overtender, how much can I overtender by? So for instance, this is basically to go stop people saying, I want to buy a can of Coke with a 200 Rand note. You know, or I suppose in this case, it would be, I want to buy a can of Coke with a £100 note. Yeah, okay, a can of Coke's going to set you back, what, $8? And now all of a sudden you're trying to pay for it with something that's worth, 17,000 Rand. So, yeah, right there. Yes, I hate the Rand. I hate the exchange rate at the moment, but anyway. So that over there is set at that point. Does it affect the tipple amount? And we're going to come back to the tipple amount, but the tipple amount over here is basically how full your till is of money. So how full your cash drawer is. Because obviously a £100 note or $100 note is only going to go full up. It's a single slip of paper. It's not that much. But, its value is obviously a lot more than that. And it's something you just need to keep, it is something you need to keep track of. And it's also got to be taken care of over here, because if this one goes over a certain amount, then, once your till fills up with money, you are going to need to actually swap it out. Or actually go and remove it from the system and take it out of the, cash it out, put it back with a new float, continue on. And allow partial tenders. So can I go and pay? So can I only pay with this, or can I pay with this and dollars and rands and? So we continue on. Next up, we have additional setups. If there are additional setups that you want to go add over here. And the reason that we have these over here is this is a payment type attribute setup. Now, I've spoken about attributes for sales before, and I mentioned that they were like UDFs, user-defined fields, on your sales documents. You can also have them on the lines of the sales documents. That's fine as well. This over here is like user-defined fields for your payments. I'll say it again, user-defined fields for your payment types. So this is additional information you might want to record for the payment. So is it, for instance, strings, numeric, date, times, or Boolean, or anything like that? Once again, it depends on your payment company, your credit card company, or the rest of that, and how exactly they want to put things together. This is what you can add over there. You can also go and add in different IDs and different values and descriptions that you might want to go put in, for instance, for selections, and are there any default values that want to go. I'm going to say no for the moment. The important thing is that you know it's there. And to be very honest, guys, at the end of the day of this training, I do know with training, you guys are busy, all the rest of it. I'm more expecting you guys to know what the system does than to actually know exactly how to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it, obviously, but at the same time, I'm expecting you to know the system does it, and then also that in conjunction with the CKP will mean you'll be able to go and find out exactly how to get it to do it. Obviously, yeah, you know, that's one of the things about teaching that I've learned about teaching all these classes is I do expect you to go and I can tell you how to do it. It doesn't mean you're necessarily listening. And with the best will in the world, I do realize that it's cool, guys. But at the same time, yeah, I'll try and go keep it going as best we can. Next up, we've got stores, and you can actually go set which stores this specific payment type is set at. I've only got Greenfield, so that's the only store I'm going to. With that, I can then go and say which stores it's applicable to. If I leave it blank, then that's fine. It'll be applicable to all stores. So I can actually go limit it to which specific stores. The entire idea is that, for instance, if you are in a... I keep on using the example of duty-free, but duty-free is a really good example for payment types. But if you are in duty-free, your duty-free store will be able to take pounds. No doubts about it. Pounds, dollars, euros. Pick a currency, really, guys. There's a lot of them out there. You'll be able to go take that over there, whereas opposed to your normal high street store, shopping mall store, you're not going to worry about pounds. It's just another thing that goes and sticks over there that might cause issues. So that's something that you're going to need to just that's going to need to be over there for that. But that's something that you can go set up. Surcharges and discounts are also quite important because, and these are very important for a reason, is you need these over here because you can then go set, for instance, once again to use the example I was before. For instance, I'm buying a can of Coke and I want to pay with a credit card. Now, once again, when you do that over a credit card, you're paying credit card transaction fees, bank fees, all the rest of it, and actually at the end of the day, the R1.50 you might be making off a can of Coke is actually eaten up by the R3.50 of the credit card fee. So you're essentially paying for the guy to go and buy a Coke on a credit card. So a lot of the stores I have seen will go say, if you're going to buy, you'll go see the sign up. Any credit card transactions less than $50 will have a surcharge on them. Will be charged a transaction fee. Having said that, please realize, all of you South African consultants out there, please realize, and this is very important for you guys, is that is illegal out here in South Africa. Okay? Please, and for the rest of you guys, please check your location, where you are and what your local laws say. Having said that, I have still had the request, and we've still put it in place for certain retailers out here, which does leave them open to a liability. And as a consultant, you do need to know that that is illegal and all the rest of it. So you can advise them and tell them that, hey, well, it's recorded over here. We're not responsible for you being an idiot. Yeah, so that's the one side with the surcharges. The other side is the discounts. Now, the discounts over here are for your the discounts are for the opposite side. Spend over a certain amount, get a discount. The one place I had this was Giancarlo Lotti in Italy. They said at their one store, if you spend more than 2,000 euros in cash with us, we'll give you a 2% discount. I said, well, if somebody's spending 2,000 euros in cash with you, I don't think they care about the discount. But anyway, that was their thing. The other interesting thing with Italy is that you can't buy anything for more than 3,000 euros in cash. It's apparently to stop the mafia. So yeah, apparently it's a problem there. All right, now that we've thoroughly dissected exactly what this payment type is, I just need to go change the display order or it's going to yell at me. I think I'm going to put it as 7. Let's put it as 7. See what happens. Does allow me. Woohoo! We're in and we selected the right number. Right. So that's over there. That's over there. I'm just going to go restart my POS over here because, and you'll note that if I go shut down terminal now, it's going to go stop me because I have transactions in progress. So I'm then going to go void the sale. It's probably going to go yell at me. It didn't yell at me, which is good because that means the other changes I put through have gone through. Shut down terminal and yes. Okay, so this is going to shut down and I'm just going to restart the terminal and I will show you that payment type coming up. There we go. Here we go. And okay, so while there we go, Acme. Yes, Acme Retail. Right, exactly what you want. Right, so here we go. That's moving. That's going to go start up with all of the amazing things that it does. And yes. Okay. All right. So. All right. So that now just to go carry on with our little thing. While okay, here we go. It's now logged in, guys. Typically at this screen, at this point at the moment over here, you would actually go get a if you're using biometrics, you can actually just sign in via biometrics. And if you have any user messages, that is one of the other setups that you can do over here. I'm just going to briefly mention it because it is very cool. Out there, that's also alert notifications, and that's part of those. They will go and appear over here in your user messages, which is very nice because you can use this to go say, remember stock take next week, Tuesday, or stock take at a certain date and time. Otherwise, it's always going to be next week, Tuesday, and never the day of the stock take. I'm going to go log in. Let's see if I can, how my typing is. Terrible. Oh, come on now. Okay, right there. While I'm waiting for that, we have a question. They can be either, Eric. Okay, so Eric asks, are these user-specific messages or global? They can be either. You can set them up either way. And you can have them appear exactly how and where you want them. There we go. Okay, so now I'm getting this pop up over here, and I do get this a lot from guys when they're first starting out with this, is, oh, I've got this popping up, what does it mean? Well, yeah, it basically means that the business date that I'm working on is the 11th to the 27th is different from the 11th to the 29th, which is today. So do I want to proceed? Yes. Well, I'm going yes in this case because this is a demo system. Yay! And I'm not going to run a day end each and every day because obviously it's a demo system. This over here is one of the options. You can either force them to, remember that's one of the options that we have in the retail profile. You can either force them to run a day end. You can go and say whether they can backdate a day end. They can, how exactly they put it in. There are settings that do govern this. I'm going to go yes. And it says please wait while it thinks and brings it up, and there we go, it's now brought that up. Now I'm just going to go bring up a quick item in our scan bar. There it is, the men's Ralph Lauren suit, and there it is. I can now pay in GBP if I've defined the exchange rate. So there you go, exchange rate not defined. There we go. And as you saw over there, guys, you can also put the exchange rates in as you go. And well, remember, you can also put the exchange rates in. And also, please remember that your exchange rates over here will be set up as will also be pulled through from your ERP. So nice thing is you set the exchange rate in the ERP, it pulls it through. Please remember forward cover on exchange rates is particularly if you are in an area where you are expecting things to go out. I know nobody wants that to happen. The entire idea of iVend is it is an online system, but I do realize this is Africa. Stuff happens. Yeah, so putting it in at least maybe a day or two in front is not going to really go, and it's not really going to go kill things that badly. Moving on. So next up on the list of things that we're going to have a look at is the payment group, is the product groups and the products. So this is something that is, now we're getting into the nitty gritty of it. Now inventory, products, Sweet. So let's go over here, search, and we've had them pop up over here like this. Now, first off, the thing you have to realize about the products, guys, is obviously we go 9 times out of 10, we are pulling them through from from the ERP system. Yeah, it's that simple. The actual products themselves, yeah, if you want to manage them in the ERP, fine. If you want to manage them in iVend, fine. We don't mind. Once again, it's that duplication of measures. Just to go, and it's because, and it's at this point where we can really start to give you guys the functionality and the flexibility to go and decide exactly how to go implement this thing, because I can guarantee you, right there, if we limited it to one side or the other, somebody would complain. It's inevitable. I love my customers a lot, but yes, somebody would complain. But over here, code, okay, well actually first thing I do want to point out in code is that we've got this lovely little graph icon over here that is actually our, it's our drill down. Yes, we do have drill downs. Ooh, right there. I know you guys with your fancy ERP systems have these things already in place, but this is something that a lot of point of sales don't have. And normally they look a bit better than this, but I think that the database I've got here is does not have a great amount of data in it. So, well, it doesn't have particularly good data in it. But still, I'll see if I can go and we'll see again tomorrow if I've got some maybe better data, and then we can have a look exactly how that works. And I'm just going to close that. You can, please remember, the designer for this dashboard is completely built into the system. You can modify it, change it, update it, do whatever you want with it. Really, it's part of the system. It's not a separate add-on. It's not Crystal. It is our own designer, and it's our own dashboard design, its own reporting design, and it's quite specific because, yeah, not everybody uses Crystal, and in some cases, Crystal can get a bit expensive. So that's all over there. Okay, we have questions. What is the difference between base price and product cost? Okay, all right, John. Yeah, I'm actually about to get to that. Yeah, so just 1 or 2 seconds while I just do some of the other features. Okay, so first off, description. Okay, and we've got a little checkbox over here by description. That's quite important because we do realize that if you are operating in a multi-language situation, which is, let's be honest, is going to appear out here. For instance, out in South Africa, say we've got stores in, and this is the case with 1 or 2 of my customers, where they've got stores in South Africa and Mozambique. Now, Mozambique, Portuguese. South Africa, English, Afrikaans. That does mean that your description of your item is going to change. So what that does mean over here is that we can start to go add in rows, select a culture. So let's go say Afrikaans, and you can go and type whatever it is over there. There's a hemp. So right there we go. We can put then that is a hemp or whatever it is, and we can carry on with that. Yes, and apologies to all the Afrikaans speakers out there. I understand it, but me speaking it is just like trying to listen to somebody gargle marbles. So that's over there, and you can go set that up, and you can have that for as many places as you want, and particularly places. And I do know we have one of our Cameroon partners online, and I know that Cameroon does English and French, if I remember correctly. So if you do want to have multiple descriptions for things, that's over there. And please remember that the description that shows on the person's screen is linked to their employee profile. So yes, get that right, and everything appears by magic. Ooh, right, short description, long description, because you can never have enough descriptions. It's that simple. Costing method. Okay, now we're getting into some interesting stuff here, and I just did have that question about base price and product cost. So there is a small difference. Okay, and the reason is, the reason that we've got base price and product cost is that they are, first off, they are 2 different things. Base price over here is not the same as product cost over here. Product cost is related to, 1, the costing method, all right, the average or standard. Now, and also the sub method, is it by per product or per product warehouse? So in per product, all the products everywhere have got the same cost. Per product warehouse is all the products, each individual store has a slightly different cost for the product. Typically, you'd find this if there were transfers between warehouses, which is some of the functionality that we've got. So for instance, if I'm transferring between, say, well, I don't know, Nairobi and Johannesburg, there is going to be a product cost associated with me moving product between the two places. It's not just going to magically disappear at one point and appear at another. Having said that, that's up to you exactly how you want to go set this up. Now, one very, very, very important thing to note is with the costing method, if we're plugged into a system, we're going to pull it from the ERP. So if we're plugged into an ERP, we will pull the product cost from the ERP. Why? Well, it's a financial function, and we really, 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 really don't actually want to get involved with it. Because inevitably what happens is if we calculate the product cost, it goes out. Right, there are rounding errors that, oh no, now there's rounding, now we need to pass a journal. Oh no, wait, no, it's now you make an adjustment on the ERP side and it doesn't pass through, and now it's an adjustment, and now iVend and that. No, it rather goes. We rather pull it from the ERP and be done with it. Questions? I have another one coming up from Agu Collins. Does it do FIFO? No. Okay, right. Not technically. Okay, and unless you do Sage, right there. So not technically, we don't really actually support FIFO. The problem is with FIFO, I find, is that there are two sides to FIFO. There are actually not two sides. There are two types of FIFO. One is the accounting FIFO, and two, there is the warehousing FIFO. Now, if you're running batches, then it's easy to do. Then you typically end up doing the warehousing FIFO because you can keep track of things like dates and times and stock and all the rest of it that you get in. And you can go say, okay, that's the oldest stock, first in, first out. Okay, or otherwise you have a rigid stock system you can go with. The problem is that I've very, very, very rarely ever seen a warehouse that does that, or has been that organized, or is in that type of business that you can do that in. 9 times out of 10, it's, hey, we have the stock, it goes there in a pile, or it goes in a bin, or location, or wherever, and we use it as we need it. That's what happens. Right there, it's not like people, and unless there's something to go distinguish it, say this batch from that batch, if it's all looks the same, people are just going to say, oh, I'll grab 10 bolts and move off. Doesn't happen. And in that case, FIFO, yeah, it does kind of work, but in most places I go to, moving average is the norm. That's it. Now, once you've set your costing, obviously pulling it through from the ERP does mean that it can go and pull through things like the FIFO cost, because we just go and we bang it back to the ERP. The ERP says, hey, this is a FIFO transaction. Yay! Moves it on. The thing is that on the actual, if they're going to insist on FIFO, then you're going to then find out why. People very rarely insist on things. I mean, if they're, the thing is that there are two reasons. I found that with people who insist on FIFO is either people don't understand it or they don't use it. And the lovely thing about FIFO is that it's an acronym. People love their acronyms, and it's just, I find that 9 times out of 10 it's not representative. Moving average gives you a far better idea about what your actual stock holding is. FIFO, I find in a lot of times, does not actually give you an idea what your stock holding is. How can I put it? It can also give a bit of an illusion as to what your stock holding is. I know it is theoretically better in some ways, but I don't always find that it is. Okay, right there. Please, I don't understand how we define management method as first in, first out, please. Okay, all right, guys. If you want to define it as first in and first out, set it up in your ERP system. We pull it from the ERP. Okay? For you Sage guys, what you do actually is you set it as standard cost here, and part of the Sage integration writes in the cost of the item through to iVend, and it uses that. So it's not actually standard cost when you use the Sage integration. It just pulls through whatever the Sage integration says. For the rest of you guys, it will pull across what is actually set up in the system. Guys, once again, I've very, very rarely found anybody who uses FIFO, and if they do, it's they either want to implement it or they don't understand it. If the customer really wants it, then hey, we'll make a plan. But it's not, I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, it's somewhere, somebody's got to be in their bonnet and decided they want to try and use it, and it's not actually going to help them. Moving on. Okay. Next up, we've got, well, moving on from that, we go across to base price. Now, base price, and this is where I do love Control F1, because it does give me something, it does give me a sheet in here called the pricing resolution order. And you'll see over here that the pricing resolution order is as follows and goes through special prices, this, all the way down, and you'll see that the very final price that it looks at over here is product base price. Okay. And this is the idea about base price. Base price, once again, is not product cost. It's not. It's not. Just no, don't. I know it says base price. It's not. What this is the price of final resort. The base price is the price that it will look to if there is absolutely diligently no other price in the system for iVend to find. Then it will look at base price. Now, I've had calls before from partners going and saying, oh, my base price and my product cost don't match anymore because we receipted in at different prices, and they got nothing to do with each other. A base price is just there as a price of reference, price of last resort. You can change your base price anytime you want. I mean, really, you can go in and change that. I mean, I can change it to $10 if I feel like. Your product cost, yeah, no, not so much. Well, at this moment, it's got no product cost associated with it, so I can change it, but otherwise it would be blanked out and I can't change it. So your base price over here is price of last resort. Right, skipping back up to here, product cost, got product cost on the brain, product group and product class. Now, Sage 300 guys out there, I know you guys got product categories, okay, and pardon for the rest of you guys, as you figured out, I am going to do this from time to time. Okay, back to you 300 guys, your product categories integrate through to the product group because they are roughly the same to each other. The product class, that's just the one thing you need to be aware of. Most of your other guys, you have product groups, so they all go and they do match up in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, just be aware of that. Product class is another grouping that we give you. So right, congratulations, you get even more grouping. When you do create a product, you do need a product group as standard. You cannot create a product without a product group. It's mandatory. You can create a product, obviously, without a product class. That's fine. You don't need that over there. You can put that in whenever you want. You can add that in when you want. Next up is UAM group, and the one thing you do need to, guys, please be very aware of this, is your UAM group is set at creation of the product. Okay. Part of the reason is that once again we go and we meet the demon of the integrated environment, and I do realize that that this is a bugbear and it is something I have asked for them to change, and they are looking at it and all the rest of it. And normally this does take about 6 months or so to go and filter through the works to find a way around it. But for the moment, right there, when you go and you create a product, your UAM group is set, and that's set the one time, that's it. We're going to go into UAM groups and UAM groups in a minute. Okay. Jean is asking about base price. If the product has base price defined like that and the price is defined per product, which price takes precedence? Okay, well, fortunately, Jean, as you saw earlier, if I go Control F1, if I go and select iVend and go Control F1, you'll see over here it does have the pricing resolution order, and as part of the pricing resolution order, you will see that it actually goes and it lists the price lists, customer base price list over there, or price list attached to store as first. So guys, once again, I really recommend, while I'm going through this, have iVend open on your side. That's the one time I will go and forgive the in attendance meter going off, because that goes and shows that you're not actually looking at my stuff, but at what I'm doing here. But that's fine if you're looking at iVend. Then that's excusable. Otherwise, if you're looking at lolcat videos or something like that, that's just not going to work for me, guys. So yeah, so it's listed over there. There's a specific help page, Jean, that will go and cover all of these things and actually explicitly explains which price takes precedence over what. As you see as well in the help, it also does have one like your tax resolution order, so how your tax resolution works out and how your barcode resolution order also works. So there are that. Okay, Steve says that I agree group to be mandatory, but product class should be not. Why is it also mandatory? Hi, Steve. Product class should not be mandatory. You can see over here, I very clearly do not have a product class in this item that has been created in the system. What might have happened is somebody might have gone right-click and make the field mandatory, which is also possible, but that is not a, and yeah, that is something that I will get into a bit later, is the additional changes that you can make to the fields, but your product class by default should not be mandatory. Okay, base price, we covered that. We covered that to exhaustion. Vendor. Okay, so you can assign a vendor or a supplier to your actual, to your product. Sales and tax codes, you can allow those as well. Allow fractional quantity. Yeah, if you are dealing with products that are sold per pound, per kg, per fraction, generally you find those in weight or length products, then you can go tick that, and that will give you fractional quantity. The next two checkboxes are some of the most important checkboxes that you can actually check, which are the allow sales discounts and don't apply sales discount on discounted items. All right. Okay, pardon guys, I have another question come up. What if I have more than one supplier per product? That's fine. Once again from Agu. Okay, guys, this is just the default vendor. iVend's not going to go say, aha, you can only buy it from that guy forever. No, we don't really care which guy you buy it from. This is just a default one. If you're using the forecasting setup on iVend, then it will use this one as a default. You can still change it in the forecasting. That's fine. iVend, we don't really want to limit you to do that. I mean, if in doubt, iVend doesn't really want you to go limit you without an extraordinarily good reason for why you can't do something, because it will cause issues further down the line. Yeah, having said that, I do try and point out the points. I do try and point out the areas where where there were reasons that they were limited in the past, and obviously we are trying to go change things as we go forward. All right. Okay, discount allowed and allow sales discounts. Okay, these two are very important, because if you do not have these ticked, you can do whatever you want, stand on your head, scream, yell from the top of the mountain, throw your machine through a wall, do whatever you want, and your sales discounts will not work for this item. Okay, by default, you should have these ones ticked. And I will show you a little trick in a second just about how a good way to go and actually set up an item so that it will always work the way you want it. Don't apply sales discount on discounted items. Okay, we've got one more question coming through. Once again from Steve, when doing back-to-back order in X3, multiple suppliers a key factor. I hope this is not an issue. Or Steve, sorry, Agu. Steve, if you're doing the back-to-back order in X3, then I can't imagine it being a problem in iVend, because you're doing it in X3. So that's an X3 situation, not something that iVend's really going to worry about. I don't see why iVend's going to go and stop you doing something in X3 unless that's a void in the setup for some reason. Okay. Let me see. Right there. Don't apply sales discount on discounted items. Now, the entire idea for this particular checkbox is that you don't get double discounts on things. Which is something else that happens is you can do something and then it doubles up on the discounts. And you can get sort of discounts that multiply on discounts that multiply on discounts, and over here you don't need to go, and with that you can actually stop this. Okay. Price override allowed. Do you allow, well, I mean, really, it does, it says on tin. You see over here, some of these ones are now blocked off. These ones over here are actually ones that that are set outside in other points in iVend, and will then turn themselves on and off as you go and you come through. So you can see this item over here has alternative products, but those are set elsewhere. And it does go, and it's more just to go, it's more an indicator flag than an actual, than something you set up through this point in iVend. Once again, we have a question, is, can a product be deleted? Ooh, this is a good one. Thanks, Dirk. Okay, can a product, or marked as inactive, especially when you're adding a product, making a mistake, you can then, it's incorrectly set up. Okay, you can't delete a product. Okay, you can mark it inactive. And that is, the reason you can't delete a product is, once again, integration. You integrate through to a system, and in some cases you can't delete products that have been integrated because it counts it as a transaction against the product, and then it stops you. So in this particular case, but you can actually go mark it as you can actually go mark it as inactive. Next one up from Yusef is, can the product parameters like cost, price, UAM category be controlled from X3 for items in iVend? Yes. Yes, Yusef. Yes. Next one up, matrix item, 2D matrix item. This does not mean that it takes the red pill and goes down the rabbit hole. What this actually means is, are you using your size color matrix? Okay, which is something I will explore a bit later. Your size color matrix, this is typically used for clothing. So this is your this is you're going and you're looking at, you know, you get red, yellow, green, and small, medium, large, extra large, however many XLs you want. You want to then go and determine exactly how many T-shirts of a specific size and shape that you want in the system. So this is just to indicate that it is actually an item that's been set up for the item matrix. A batch tracked or serial tracked, once again, those are set on your initial setups here. Can you allow automatic select of serial or batch? Please remember, we had the setting earlier at the enterprise settings. You can override it over here in the product itself. So that's another one we can do. Here another question. Yes, Steve, this is where we go and we set up multiple product codes per product. We're about to get to that a bit later. Allow selling of expired items. So once again, if your item has an expiry date, do you allow that? Do you require expiry dates for serial or batch items? Allow refund for expired items. Is the item exchangeable? So can you exchange the item or not? Also, is the item a non-stock item? So is it something like a service or a separate item that pops through? Is it refundable, and how many return days? Now, quite often you see this is that a lot of people go and say that they only have so many days that an item needs to be returned in. That's something that you can go set over here. Okay, can you sell the product? Can you buy the product? Is it a weighed product? Now, you need, if you're doing a weighed product and a fractional quantity product, those two typically go together. Yeah, allow electronic bank transfers, has a package group, what sort of package group it has associated with it. Package groups we'll get to a bit later. Okay, we have a question. Can you do different return days based on item groups? Not so much, Philip. Sorry. Those typically, your return days are typically set per item. Once they're set up, they're set up. And please remember, you can update the items in here using the import. Using our import tool. Once our import tool goes in, it will go and update everything so that it all goes and fits back together. Can we define the expiry date of the product from here? From Jean-Paul, no. You don't define the expiry date here. Because then you've got every product expiring in, say, 6 months' time. You define the expiry date on the batch when you receipt it into the system. Okay. Package groups, this is, for instance, you're going along to a some of these buffet places. I know Fruit and Veg Market or Food Lovers Market, as they're calling themselves now, have got a lunch section with fruit and veg. You go and you fill up your tray, take it along, they weigh it, and you go and you wander off with it. What the package group is over here is you can then define a tray, a container size, and then you can subtract the weight from the overall weight of the actual product. So you're only actually selling the product. You're not selling the weight of the product and the container. Next one, another question is, does saleable mean sell? So just offered on sale. Would unticking this item mean it does not appear on the product search? Okay. Saleable means that, it essentially means you can sell the item. Unticking it means means you can't actually see it on the point of sale. Can it generate? Okay, next one from Steve is, can it generate a defined serial number, serialized process on receipt of the product? Yeah, you can go and set up your serial numbers on receipt of product. You don't have to manually type them in. There is an auto-generate function that will generate it according to certain categories and certain functions that you put together. That's something that we can maybe have a look at when we get to that side of the system. Please remember as well, in here, like I said, we do have the entire idea with particularly things with serial numbers, and if they do start to get a bit complex, throw a bit of extensibility at it and you'll be fine. Okay, all right. Package groups, kits and assembly. Okay, these are quite important for you guys because first off, hands up who's heard of kitting before? Hi guys, I'm still here. Who has heard of kitting? Hands up. Okay, I've got from Ago and Steve presumably. Okay, here we go. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, so they're coming through. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, guys, okay, I'm just going to put your hands down. Thank you. All right. Okay, but we have had some who have not heard of kitting. Okay, all right, so kitting over here is something that happens in the retail industry. Essentially, it is typically on the ERP side, it gets counted as a production process. So essentially you take a batch of items, you put them together, and you go and it becomes a kit. Normally I see this happen with things such as your games consoles, so your Xboxes, your PlayStations, and cameras is another one. So typically what will happen is a store will say, we're selling a camera starting kit, a photography starting kit. And with that, you can then go, and with that, you get a camera, you get the camera, the strap, the tripod, the carry case, the batteries, the the list goes on of bits and pieces you get. And the entire idea is that with that, you go and the entire idea with that is that it's now all put together in a box, and the box is actually put out for sale. So you just buy the box. You just buy the one item. You don't buy it doesn't list all the individual items that are associated with it. It does also mean that you count it, that when you do a stock count, you go say, I have 1 box of this camera kit. Or I have 100 boxes of this camera kit. You don't actually go say, I have 100 tripods, 100 this, 100 camera bodies, 100 camera lenses, 100 this, and all the rest of bits and pieces there. So it is actually a produced product. However, in retail, it's called a kit. You take it, you can actually, when it's run through here, there's a kitting process that gets run. It does normally on the ERP side, not for all ERPs, but for most of the ERPs we integrate to, it actually generates a production order. It may also, in some of the other ERPs, it does also do just a goods issue and a goods issue of the components, goods receipt of the finished product. So effectively, it is a bit of production over there, very production light. So what happens is it goes and it issues the products, produces it, receipts it back in, and receipts it in as a completed product. Now, the kitting can take place at 1 or 2 places. It can either be over here in the management console, so I need to kit 100, Christmas is coming, I need to kit 100 cameras, or otherwise at the actual point of sale. What can actually happen here is I go along, I say, oh, hang on, wait, oh, you want to buy an additional controller for your Xbox or PlayStation or whatever it is. Oh, well, here, we've got one bundled in this kit. You can actually go and build or break a kit at the point of sale itself. So that means that it will then, when you break the kit, it disassembles it and puts all the individual components back into stock, allowing you to go sell the one controller or the game or just the console or whatever it is. And that's particularly handy, particularly if you have to replace something. You might not have that individual thing anymore, but it will be part of a kit, so you can then unkit it, sell it, and off you go, and off the customer goes happy as Larry. It does mean that you have the options over there for that. Okay. Similarly, with assembly, an assembly bill of materials, this is where, and the SAP guys are going, oh, I know what an assembly bill of materials is. Yeah, guys, we do support assembly bill of materials. You go and you bring, basically, it's a contrived bill of materials. You put all the items in front of the person. They scan it, and it goes and says, oh, well, it's an assembly bill of materials. It must contain X, Y, and Z, and then we sell it. It's not actually, all the individual components are counted individually, they're stored individually. It's only at the point of sale that comes together and it goes and says, hey, this is actually a camera kit or whatever it is that we're selling. You can also do a dynamic assembly, which is similar, but obviously that's if you want to just go put everything together as a specific sale. Layaways, you do need to go mark an item as being able to do layaways. Can you order it? Is on hold. There's the inactive thing that I got popping up. Okay, right, who else have we got? All right, oh. Okay, Willem, we'll see you around, and yeah, we'll get you the videos, and you can have a look there and see what happens. You can catch up with the rest of it. Okay, is tax exempt, which is different than being, which is slightly different than going and than how you go and you normally set this up, is inclusively taxed. Okay, now tax exempt is, you can actually set an item as specifically tax exempt, and then it does get certain things attached to it. Such in certain areas, for instance, duty-free zones, you do need to go mark things as tax exempt. Whereas you can also go and mark, say, the store as just being in a zero tax area. This way over here, certain items will always be tax exempt. Whereas over here, the inclusively taxed, you can also go say where the item is inclusively taxed. If the item is inclusively taxed, when you go and you type bring it up over here, it will go and include in the tax on the actual item itself. Please remember, guys, if you do make a change over here, and it doesn't immediately appear on the point of sale, I have had this happen with a partner who's a lovely person, and unfortunately this didn't happen. Guys, if you do have a question, please don't raise your hand. Rather go and just type the question and I will answer it as best I can. They did have a problem where they kept on saying it's not being inclusively taxed correctly, and then they restarted the POS and then everything worked correctly. So you do actually need to go and make sure that that change goes through. Or please remember, sometimes the change does take a bit of time to go through from enterprise through to the store server. Okay, default quantity. So if it's always sold in lots of 10, you can put that here. If it's always sold in lots of, over here you can also define the maximum quantity per transaction. So you can only sell 10 at a time. This stops people going and wandering in, buying you out of all the stuff that you have, and then going and just then running a competitive promotion. That does happen. Retail is a cutthroat business, guys. I have had a couple of cases where people ran a discount on a certain item. It was a special item that they've got from the producers at a special discount, and it was only for them. One of their competitors walked into the store, bought all the stock that they had, went over to took it back to their store and put it up then put it up to go sell as a slight markup. Put it on a slight, it's still discounted, but not quite as heavily discounted as before, and then basically for the period of the promotion time that the other guys had to go say, well, we're out, you have to go to the other guy, he's gone and bought it from us. So you can stop that for per transaction. Next one up, UPC code. So this is where you set the UPC code. And okay, Hansen, yeah, just rather put, if you've got a question, please go and type it in the questions box and I will answer it. Okay, who else is, And Youssef, if you have questions, please type them in the questions box and I will answer it as quickly as possible. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, Steve. Where's the best place to update, the enterprise server or the store server or the workstation? Okay, well, first off, the workstation, I'm guessing, is the workstation is the management console. So remember, the management console is going to be at the enterprise and at the store. Your enterprise server is just your server, and so is your store server. You're always going to be updating it through a workstation, technically. The best place to update, it depends on the customer, on where they want to do it. Do they allow updates at the store? Do they allow updates at the enterprise? Please just remember, it's going to take some time for it to filter through. That's the name of the game, guys. If they want it to go, if they want to immediately adjust it at the store, then they need to go and then they can update it at the store. If it needs to be enterprise-wide, then they should update it at the enterprise. Also, once again, remember it also affects your ERP. So those are all parts and things that you need to remember, is that they all fit through, and they are all things that come through over here. Okay, next one up from Youssef: is batch tracking the same as lot tracking? Yes. Yeah, it is pretty much exactly the same. People call batches lots and lots batches, and it's the same thing altogether. Next up is the other question I had, which is where do you find product codes and multiple product codes, which is over here. So we at the top of here, we have the item code from iVend. This is the one that iVend puts in, and we do realize that, and it's also the one that we integrated onto the ERP. At the same time, we do realize that it's not that multiple items, that items do sometimes have UPC codes, differing UPC codes, as well as they do have multiple UPC codes that are attached to them, and you can define that over here. So you can put in a UPC code that is distinct from the item code up top. At the same time, you can also go and do a alternate UPC code. And with the alternate UPC codes, that is quite nice. You can have as many as you want. So I can have that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I could say that that is for 6 of these items. So you can have a different UPC code for a different unit size. Typically, I find this happens a lot with, and I use this example a lot because it's everywhere, worldwide, everywhere has Coke. So, you know, very few, there's only one country I can think of that's not really at, but they still use the same principle. And that is with a Coke. If you actually have a look, the barcode on the can of Coke is different from the barcode that's on the shrink wrap of the 6-pack of Coke. Same thing for the shrink wrap that's on the pallet of Coke, the carton of Coke, the 12-pack of Coke. Each of those have got different UPC codes on them, and this is why. With that, you can then go say, okay, scan one thing, it'll go say, hey, you're selling 6 of these, or scan another thing, and hey, you're selling 24 of these. So that goes and really helps over here to go and define each of those differently. Age verification required. Yes, this is something over here. For you tobacco and alcohol guys who are going and selling to those over there, or firearms as well, just to go complete the little ATF analogy I've got going, you can also go set an age verification checkbox over here, which will then force the customer to, which brings up a pop-up box going and saying, minimum age is 18, 21, I don't know. So you don't get kids going and sneaking in, trying to go and wander off with, go say, oh, I'm just buying a box of cigarettes for my dad, or something like that. And meanwhile, they're going off and puffing away around the corner. No, you actually have to put that in here, so it does help for some of the more particularly brain-dead operators out there, that it does actually go say, oh, you know, this person doesn't look that. Of course, some people do get highly indignant when you go say, can I see some age verification, please? And, you know, the guy's clearly in his, and the person's clearly in their 60s. Of course, some people take it as a compliment as well. Manufacturer, we can have multiple, you can have as many, well, you've got your manufacturers in here. You can go have as many as you want. I have another question. Would there be, from Eric, would there be conflicts in integration of sound? iVend, you set an item to be batch tracked, but the accounting system doesn't cater for that. E.g. Sage partner doesn't have backtracking as always module, but iVend can do it. Would there be issues? No. Oh, there shouldn't be. Look, that's something that would typically be taken care of in the integration. I do realize that Pastel Partner, or Sage Partner as it is now, doesn't do that. Basically it should just be the lot serial tracking can actually happen in iVend itself. iVend will cater for that or, just by itself. You don't need to worry about it. It's the same thing, for instance, Sage 1. That definitely doesn't have batch and serial tracking, but we do actually have that over here. But that is something that we do have, and we go and we take care of it. It's just the information doesn't get passed back. That's the nice thing about integrations is you can be quite selective on the information you want to, where you want to send it, how you want to send it, and what you want to do with it. So that is available there. And I have another question popping up. Okay, no problem, Eric. Okay, Agu asks, I have 2 6-packs of Coke and want to break one of them 6-packs so I can start selling one. Does it have where I will transfer one and receive as 6 singles? Okay, typically Agu over here, this is not, this is, and that's from Steve, pardon Agu. Okay, Steve, this over here is just alternate UPC codes. It's not actually going and changing the quantity of, that's not changing your URMs. Now, typically over here we keep in the single URM category. So we would store in cans of Coke. Okay, right? That's the base unit of measure. That's what we look at. From there we build up. That's why we ask questions like, is it weighed and is it a fractional item? Because if it's a fractional item, then your base unit of measure is not a whole thing. So, for instance, if I'm selling spices, spices is one of the ones that I get, or salads, or I have a salad bar or something like that. Then you can go and have it broken down. Then you can have it less than 1 kg, but you can also have it with more than 1 kg and various fractions in between. This over here is just to go indicate that, hey, I scanned this barcode. I'm selling 6 of these. I'm selling a 6-pack. I scan that barcode. I'm selling 24 of these. That's it. It's a shortcut, essentially, to the amount that you're selling. Okay, having said that, it's not a replacement for units of measure. We still do units of measure. We're still going to get to units of measure, and I need to hurry up if we're going to get there. So that is something else that is over here as well. Okay, let me see. Minimum age, open price. So do you want to open the price up? Can you change it? Can you change how much the price is? Allow for a 0 price. Remember, there is a checkbox further up going and saying whether you are allowed 0 price or not. You also get the second option over here. Can you change the description? Changing the description is typically something I see on gift certificates, which is one of the other setups that we do. Gift certificates, you can go and say, Dear Johnny, Merry Christmas from Grandma. All right, that kind of stuff. A 0 value item, is it a 0 value item, which may be a promotional item? The guys from wherever went and sent it to you. You've thrown it in, you're selling it. We're not technically even selling it. It's just it's a throwaway item or it's not a throwaway item. It's just an item that's being given away. It was given to you free of charge. You know, you might be selling it, you might be giving it away. Can you redeem it for loyalty points or not? Does it have a URL? Typically this goes in, this URL over here is linking back to either a manufacturer website or an e-commerce store, or preferably your e-commerce store, but that's up to you. Barcode masking, I'm going to get to that a bit later, but here's, you can actually set the barcode mask per product. Comments. Yeah, if you want to put in comments about the item, or if there's something else that you want to add to the item to be printed, you can put that here. I'm going to come back to product prices and margin a bit later. Edit image. Do you want images in there? Maximum discount amount and maximum discount percentage. You can go set as well. Your images over here can be integrated to your ERPs, depending on which ERP it is. I know, for instance, X3. They are looking at doing that in one of the upcoming versions of the integration. There's a slight way about handling blob files that was an issue, whereas SAP definitely does it. The SAP Business One does it. I know that. There is actually a checkbox on whether you want to do it or not. That's more because, you know, how big do you want your database to get? Please remember that these are stored in the database, so it can increase database size. So, yeah, once again, yeah, be careful about your sizes. Okay, view inventory. And this is actually a good point. I'm going to start going and showing you some of the additional things over here, because obviously I'm expecting you guys to know what most of these columns are. One of the things that you can see, code, which is your warehouses, name, which warehouses they are, transaction types, so saleable, purchasable, and you can set that per warehouse. So for instance, general warehouse might only be purchasable. Tax codes, you can set those if you haven't set those higher up. And remember, there is a tax code hierarchy. Follow the hierarchy, it'll guide you. Remember, Control F1, help, it's your friend. Product costs, prices, lead times. So lead times, now we start to get more into the MRP side of things. There is a forecasting function in iVend. A lot of this information is pulled through from the ERP. A lot of times when we are integrated to an ERP, it will be set in the ERP and you can use the ERP forecasting function. You also get to see things like lost quantities, quantities that have been returned, on order quantities, fulfillment quantities, available quantities. And when I mean available, I mean actually available in store. We do not count orders, we do not count items that are on order with the manufacturers. So items that we have purchase orders in as available. They're not available for sale, they're still to get here. Anything that's in the in-transit warehouse, is it available, how much is available to sell, when it was last modified, last counted quantity was counted, which are you doing cycle counts, next cycle count dates, minimum maximum stock levels, consider an MRP. Yeah, there we call it MRP, not forecasting. Minimum order amount, which warehouse is meant to go to, cost margin protection. We also have drill downs here for serial numbers and batch numbers, and if I had layaway set up here, we'll be able to drill down into those. Something I do want to point out over here is that, for instance, consider an ERP, an MRP. Guys, there is obviously an additional right-click menu that does come here with iVend, and you can do things such as best fit, group by, best fit all columns to just go get everything to fit together as best as you can. Consider an MRP. There are things such as making fields mandatory, which is, I think, one of the other functions. Well, I can't bring it up here. It does come up on the screen before this. Set maximum value, minimum value, value ranges. Make the field non-editable if you don't want, if you just want people to look at it. And obviously, once with this, you can go and grant the right to go and make it edit, to go and access this menu, as well as hiding this menu. You can also do things like changing captions, which I'm going to do over here. So. No, not with that one. Consider an MRP. That's the one I want to change the caption value. So instead of consider an MRP, I want to go say in sales forecast. Once I change it here, it then goes and changes for everybody. Okay, right. So it's a one-off change for everybody. It will change for everyone. I can also go and do, for instance, things like if I want to view the change log, there's an audit log that we have. All of our stuff is audited. We do have an audit trail. So you can see who changed what at what time. If somebody wanted to try and quickly change something, give somebody $1 million discount and then change it back. We do record that. Okay. Next up is also the layout. And this is something that is here and that we can have a look at. And I just want to go show you. There are additional fields that are available over here, but there are fields here that you don't necessarily want everybody to see. So for instance, next count date, that might not be one. So I can go and left click, drag, drop, and it's removed. Same thing over here. Once more, slow motion for you sports fans. Slow motion replay, there you go. And it's gone, last modified. Things like costs and things like that that you don't necessarily want people to see, you can hide. Once you've gone, you've changed all that, you can right-click again, layout, and then you can save it, and you can get many different layout types. So for instance, your cashiers can go see one layout type, whereas your managers might see another one. With that, you can actually go and assign those changes, and I'm just going to quickly open this up to show you. This is something I didn't point out yesterday when we were doing it, is in the administration role, you'll see it's got display profile. You can actually assign the display profile over here to your different security roles. So that is something to go consider. That is something that's very handy. That is something that you can get up and ready and running here. Next up is product prices and margin. This over here allows you to go and enter in, if you have a current cost, what your margin percentage is, what your margin markup is, your coefficient, price, and price rounded. And just before I get any further, we have a question. How do I assign a new name to a display profile? Thanks, Bernadine. Okay. All right. Yeah, I suppose I did waft over that a little bit quickly. Okay, so we go administration, retail configuration, display profile, new, code and description, and that's it. Then you go and, so if I'm going to put here cashier, I click OK, that's it. That's all I need to do at this point. Then if I go to, say, over here, view inventory, and I want to go hide product cost, I go layout, customize, drop product cost, right click, layout, save, cashier. And then whenever I log in as, I'm not a cashier at the moment, I don't have that assigned to me, but I will be able to go and change that to whatever I want. No problem. All right, you're welcome. Okay. Next up, sorry, just back quickly to product prices and margin. Things like, okay, so this over here, you can actually go put in your price, your rounded price, what it's meant to be, how exactly you want to round it, round to nearest, round up, round down. This will allow you to go put your prices in such a way that you actually have your rounding in place, and what you're rounding, and if there is any rounding that, your rounding amount that you want to go to. So with this, you can actually put that in such a way that you can actually have it up and down and put to the right places for you. All right. Okay. I'm glad that everyone's still with me. I am just going to go on a little bit longer just to try and gather up and catch up with everything that we got. Next up, just to go and quickly get along with this, I want to get along to, we've done margin protection. Please be aware the margin protection module that I just showed you is iVend unplugged only. Typically, we would rely on the ERP to go and handle things like that, because once again, if the cost is handled in the ERP, then the margin protection is handled in the ERP, and most ERPs, once again, you know, that's more of a financial thing that we really want to get into. And unplugged, we do handle it. So that is something to think of. Next up, units of measure groups, units of measure groups, and price lists. And we're going to go and we will continue along, and then we'll also try and hit the store setups with warehouses and in transits, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so units of measure. Right, let's go along, and it's over here in operations, inventory. You'll see over here it's called, first one up is called units of measure. And really, this is pretty straightforward. If I open up pair, you'll see it's just basically an identifier. Is ID, description, that's it. Once you've got these loaded into the system, however, you can then go to units of measure group. And with that, we can then start to go and set how each of these relate to each other. Now, over here, I'm sorry, I just need to move that. Over here, you'll actually see that, say, and the first line that will come up is always going to be your baseline of how it relates. Is one, and you'll see over here, one each. So is 1 is equal to 1 each. So 1 is equal to 1. That's the important thing over here, is we need to actually set the 1 is equal to 1 ratio, because otherwise it doesn't know how the rest of it associates with each other. Next up, you can see 1 pair is equal to 2 each. Dozen is equal to 12. Box is equal to 20. Carton's equal to 50, and a case is equal to, in this case is equal to 6. And you can add rows over here. So you can add these on as time goes by to go and modify it. This is also, because you can modify this over here, this is also generally why I do suggest at least adding in a unit of measure option on your product when you generate your product. So remember that when we went over here to the actual product, when we open up men's here, you'll see I can't actually add in a units of measure group now. It won't allow me. I would normally just add in a units of measure group anyway, even if it's just a basic one. So once it's in there, you can always come back and customize it and change how it works and how they integrate with each other. But the important thing is that you have at least one units of measure group that works there with it. So if it's in, it's in. Okay. from there, we can then go across. Oh, and one other thing I did meant to go show you that is actually very, very important, because I know what happens is you go and you click new, you're starting to create a new item, and then you're thinking, oh my God, do I need to tick this one or this one? What happened? Oh, I tick this one, and then but what key? Oh wait, no, what all of these things. There's a lot of stuff to remember. One of the things I have asked for is the ability to go set a default value for fields, which will make it much easier, much nicer. And you see over there, product group is marked. This is how you can tell your mandatory fields. They are marked with a big red X. Yeah. And it's, by the way, it's not retroactive. If I do go right-click, make this field mandatory, it's not going to go and it's not going to make it retroactive. So I do still need to go fill out their ones retroactively. But going forward, it will always make it mandatory. Now I know what happens over here is that you forget which ones, and oh no, you've just created an item and then you forgot one thing, and now I need to disable it and recreate it again. My suggestion is if you go through, and if you're going to create an item, you go through new, you go through, you make sure you tick all the boxes, you make sure you're happy with it, you got everything right, and then what you do is, say for instance, I'm just going to pick this one, I can then go say copy, and it will have all the boxes and everything checked that I wanted in the first place. Okay, so it will have discounts allowed, it'll have allow sales discounts, it'll have all the rest of those things there that I want. I don't need to worry about, do I need to tick them again? Then I just need to go change things like the description and the product group. Okay, and we have a question over here. Does units of measure sync through to the ERP as well? Should this be defined again in iVend? Lausanne, as I understand, in most cases, it does actually synchronize through. Once again, please check your ERP integration details for exactly what's going on there. Once again, it should. But yeah, I don't want to go and say absolutely for everyone, because there are, please remember that with things like Partner, Sage Partner and Sage 1, those ones don't necessarily carry units of measure. And that will also go and change it. Yeah, it also depends on what's available in those ones. So yeah, well, I'll try and go and get at least have a day or so where we can go and just examine, okay, this is what happens in Partner, this is what happens in Sage 1, this is what happens in 300, this is what happens in Business 1. But yeah, well, that might happen maybe a bit later in December. Okay, oh, and we have another question popping up. Okay, sure, no problem. Okay, no problem, Lazon. Now, the next thing that covering units of measure, that was actually surprisingly quick. I just want to go and quickly cover store setup. And, well, yeah, the store and warehouse setup, as well as I'm also going to have a quick look at the label designer just before we end, well, depending on how we go. And we've already done tax condition setup, so we are actually ahead of the curve. Oh, we can also, actually, before I have a look at store setup, there is one thing I do want to have a look at. It was scheduled for tomorrow, but this one I've got slides for, which actually makes it handy. And that is the merchandise hierarchy. Now, the merchandise hierarchy is something that is particularly important. This will not have an equivalent in the ERP. Okay, I've run across these before. In fact, for you SAP guys, yeah, because I worked a bit with SAP before, I actually ended up going and generating a merchandise hierarchy with one of the development tools, Boyum, and it took me something like, I think it was 50 universal functions and a whole batch of settings and all the rest of it to do it. And it took 3 weeks to get it to work right, and it's a pain. And iVend had it there from the get-go, which made it really, 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 really annoying for me. But anyway, iVend has it from the get-go. So now this is something to consider. Now, first off is, what is a merchandise hierarchy? Okay. All right, let's start from the top over here. A merchandise hierarchy is essentially a multi-level grouping function for certain things in iVend. Now, these over here, these merchandise hierarchies are something that is that are used a lot in retail. Essentially, and these are not things like and before you SAP guys go and ask, this is not the 64 properties. And before you nav guys ask, this is not related to I think it's the dimensions that you guys got. This is separate. This is 64, this is not 64 properties. This is the merchandise hierarchy with multiple levels. You can go set these up. These are additional groups. So you'll see over here, from apparel, we can then group it into menswear and ladieswear. From there, we can group it into formal, casual. From there, shirts and trousers. And you see how it splits all the way down. I know that these two mirror each other. They don't necessarily need to mirror each other. They might, but they might not. What we can do with this is that once we've set it up, we can then go and actually assign it through to the item itself. And the nice thing is that you can assign multiple merchandise hierarchies to one item. This means that you can actually go and pull these through into reports, and you can go see exactly how things go, what is selling, when, where, how, and all the rest of it. And we have a question. Oh, thanks, Eric. Yeah, for Sage, guys, Evolution has a segmented inventory. Yeah, okay, I don't know how much that will go in here, but yeah, we'll see what, yes, no, well, fine, we'll see what happens there. But okay, so not to be left out. Okay, but the thing is that this doesn't integrate to any of those. So this over here is basically just to go segment to go and segment it down as additional grouping. You can come here, you can set it up in iVend itself. You can go and set your maximum hierarchy levels. If I remember correctly, you've got, yeah, there we go. And just to go confirm it over here, you can see this is, sometimes even I look at the help, you can set up to 15 levels of hierarchy. So I'm just going to go down to, if I'm going to use my example over here, we're going down to 4. Okay, so set that as 4. Okay, guys, remember, if you have a question, Yusuf, please type it in the blocks. Willem, can you import merchandise hierarchy? Yes. Okay, all right, so you can actually go reduce that. It does make it easier to go and it does actually make it easier to go and put together. Yeah, so Yusuf, if you can just type your question and I will answer as soon as possible. Apparel, and yeah. Apparel for add root node, because the root node is your basic one that you're looking at. So APPAREL, and then I'm going to add a child node. And depending on where I select it, we'll go put through. So let's go put menswear, and add child node, and let's put. So yeah, and I think you see how we can go from here, and then we can add sort of more nodes as we go down. Once we've added them all, you have to go, if you start one of these, they have to all end on level 4. You can't have what's called a ragged hierarchy setup, but that's not a problem. Sometimes you just need to repeat it all the way down. So it might be women's wear, women's wear, women's wear, women's wear. Or menswear, 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 menswear is women's wear. It just goes and it sort of defines itself all the way down. And remember, you can have as many of these as you want. And more importantly, come on, search. You can also go and assign as many of them over here in the item as you want. You can put as many merchandise hierarchies, which means that you can have multiple extra groupings with multiple levels to multiple hierarchies, so you can really go mad to your heart's content and possibly drive somebody running the reports mad. Yeah, though, please, if you're writing reports for it, please just be very careful of that. It can also go drive you a bit nuts. So, fair warning. Right, a final thing I want to just cover today is the store setup, which is actually one of the really important things that we really need to do. Once we've done that, we can then go and actually go and make sure that we have got. Well, once we've done that, I will let you go back and continue on with emails and all the rest of the stuff that piles up while I'm yammering on about this. Let's go over here, and sorry to jump around a bit on this, but let's just go here, retail, and over here we have, first off we have the warehouse, and next off we have the store. I'm going to start over here in warehouses. Okay, so warehouses. Now, warehouses are actually one of the things that we license on. Each warehouse we normally would license on store server, which is typically what we would say, for instance, over here, the avenues. The avenues is it's a physical store that's actually linked through. That we would license on. For things like the in-transit warehouse, let's actually just change that to in-transit. There we go. Is actually one that we wouldn't license on. That wouldn't be associated with that. But the avenues over here would actually be a licensed warehouse. Your address, so you can go put in your address that you want. I have a question. The question is, yes, Yusuf, I will be sharing the recorded video with everyone as soon as I can go and get, it will be shared on the City Access Knowledge Portal. Okay, yeah, I think we had that one earlier. Address, like I said, sales and tax code, and remember your sales and tax code can be set per warehouse because remember you might have a distribution warehouse that's in a different tax region to your actual store. So, and you might have different sales and tax codes that are associated with that. Yay! Let's hear it for the politicians. Next up is warehouse type. Now you get a couple of different warehouse types. One of them is distribution. One of them is retail. This one. One of them is in transit. You always need to have at least one in transit warehouse. The first warehouse you will create will be an in transit warehouse. Just the way it is. Okay. That's if you're creating it through the iVend side. If you're creating it through the ERP side, then we will pull through your warehouses through into iVend. Okay. Which means that once they're pulled into iVend, you can then use them and select them. Though normally as part of the setup process in the ERP, preparing the ERP, we actually go set it. We go and we tell part of the instructions is to actually go set up a in-transit warehouse, and that it is marked as in transit as well. Ownership type, company owned, company operated. This ownership type over here is something that you can set. This is more, the three options are company owned, company operated, company owned, franchisee operated, franchisee owned, franchisee operated. Those you can go set over here to exactly how you want them to be set. That's up to you on exactly how and what and where you want to go put that through. The next one is, and then do you want to allow negative inventory in this warehouse? So there's something that you can do as well. You might not allow negative inventory overall, but you can still allow it at one warehouse or so. Questions. Can we perform a stock transaction between warehouses on a single machine? Okay, all right, that can't be done from enterprise. Yeah, Jean-Paul, you should be able to do that, but that should actually be done from the enterprise itself. There are some things that are limited from the enterprise deliberately because you're not really technically meant to be conducting a stock receipt at the enterprise. I mean, if we have a look at my favorite diagram over here, essentially what you're doing is, yes, I'm doing a stock receipt here at the enterprise, which might be thousands of miles away from where the stock is actually being received over here at the store. So, you know, technically when they do the stock receipt, they're meant to go and actually check the stock. I do realize that that's not always the case, but, you know, that's why we have allowed it to go and do it over here, but still, yeah, that is something to just be aware of. Okay, so allow negative inventory, that was that one there. Next one up from there, we go across to the actual store. And now we actually go and we create this is where we will have our different stores. Here, I've got another question. Hi Keith, you need to allow negative inventory and global settings to be allowed to tick that on the warehouse. From what I know, no, you don't. You can just have it at a specific warehouse, but not at all warehouses. So, yeah. That way you can go, because if you set it globally, then it's set for everything. If you set it just for that warehouse, then you can just set it, say, okay, only that warehouse can go to negative, and then you can resolve the negative stock in iVend before it even really reaches, well, you can try and resolve it in iVend before it really actually goes and reaches the ERP system. But yeah, that's also something else to have a look at. Okay, so now the store, and this is the final thing that I'm really going to look at today before before I go and I say cheers. Actually, I think I wouldn't. I said maybe we'll have a look at one other thing, but we'll have a look. Let's see how long this takes. So first off, code description. Yay. Store type. And your store type over here, you get two store types. It's either retail or e-commerce. And that's part of how we integrate through to our e-commerce software, the iVend e-commerce software. That's something that you can set over here. Next one up is which selling warehouse, so which warehouse is attached to the retail store. Beyond that, you also get what which address you are looking at. So which address is set here for the store. This address that's over here is the one that's printed out on the receipt. So that'll get printed out on your receipt format. Your email for your email format, which bank account, if there are specific ones associated here. What your retail profile is. Once again, your retail profile strikes again. So yes, there are those over here that you can set up. Once the retail profile, it's everywhere. So if you don't assign it at the POS, if you don't assign it at the enterprise, don't assign it at the POS, don't assign it to the employee, you can pick it up over here at the store. So lots of fun. The store mode at the moment, and this is a very important one. And you'll see on some of our older training materials, it used to be a case of setting the site ID. Now the site ID is something that you no longer need to worry about. We have now updated it where you can now actually go set the store mode. Now enterprise with store, it means that the enterprise and the store is in one place. In fact, let me just see if we go through to new. Yeah, you see now it just sets it to store. So that's and just to be very clear, this setting over here, this is set the first time you create the store. And in fact, this is, once again, it's a point, back up the system before you hit this. There's a very good reason for that, because once you go and you set this, once I set this and I click OK, that's it, it's set. And unless you want to go get a bill from us to go change it for you, yeah, rather just get this set right the first time and you don't have to worry about it. Fortunately, we've now put in the store mode, so you can actually go select what the store mode does, which store mode it is. And there's three settings here: enterprise, enterprise with store, or just store. Now, the first two are the two that are really relevant: enterprise or enterprise with store. That determines whether you are in mixed mode or in your enterprise mode. So that goes and really determines how you're set. Once you're set, it'll automatically set the site ID. You just carry, and then you can carry on. Enable offline store. People get a bit confused about this setting here. Now, by default, iVend is enabled for offline, okay, to the store. So if the store is offline, if this server, if the internet's cut and this server can't communicate, then it's right. That's typically what people mean by offline. However, in the age of clouds and things like that, you can sometimes get one of these stores that goes and it has. You can get these stores and you can get these setups where it has both the store server and the enterprise server in the cloud. So in that case, the POS communicates directly to the cloud. What this means is that if the internet's cut, then that POS can't function at all. And what we've done in order to go and enable people to do this, personally, I don't really, personally, this madness that about it is a bit weird, but you know, people do want this, and we have enabled it, and it is there, and it is ready. Is you can actually go and enable the offline store. Now, what the offline store will do is it will go and install a SQL Express database at every till. So each till over here will then get its own little SQL Express database that carries a cut down version of the store server essentially at each of these ones, and it then goes and then what happens is it will go and then run back through to the enterprise server. So that will be done. And that will automatically be set up and that will be set up here. So that will go run back through to the cloud, through to the store server, through to the enterprise server. So you can actually get that set up. However, please be aware that if you're going to enable the offline store over here, one, your specs for your POS are higher. There's no two ways around it. You're now running SQL Express. You're going to need a bit more than an i3. You need an i5, and you need at least 4 gigs of RAM. Just the way it is. Same thing over here with same thing with this is that as well. You will also, if you do go offline at the POS, you will also lose some functionality, such as credit card functionality is generally one of the first to go, because obviously if it can't communicate to the credit card server, then it can't go process a credit card. We do not store credit card numbers in iVend, or well, that's not strictly correct. We do store in some cases, but they are salted and hashed, so they are hidden. We don't reserve them and then let somebody walk off and then try and go and then try and get the credit card, run the credit card against it later. We don't do that. It's not, if they have the money, it should be there immediately available. That's their thing. They need to go set that up. Next up, cash customer. This is a cash customer. You can either have one cash customer for all the stores, or you can have a cash customer per store. You do not actually need to have a cash customer for the store at all. You can actually have no cash customer. It just means that when you open up the point of sale over here, it's going to force you to choose a customer, like what happens in an ERP. When you go and you open up your invoice screen, it normally forces you to go and choose a customer first. Sales and tax, your tax codes, your fulfillment plans and layaway plans, which we're probably going to get to tomorrow. So fulfillment plan for layaway, your layaway plan, salesperson, if there's a default salesperson for the store, reassign all tills at end of day. That's if there's not a specific till that's associated with a specific point of sale. And that might seem a bit odd to say, but essentially it's so that people can actually move around. They can log into whichever till and they can use whichever till they want. That is something you can do over here. Is there a specific hardware profile that's set for the store? So if the store uses exactly the same devices, you can actually go and have just one hardware profile, and it will just automatically enable and engage with those. Store group for taxation, store group for pricing. So store groups I'll come to in a minute. Your default price list for a store, you do need to set that. Each store does need to have its own does need to have a price list. They can all have the same price list, but it does need a price list. Retail price list, so is there a specific retail price list that is associated with it? And the reason that there's a retail price list and a price list is actually for printouts, because for instance you do get what you do see in a lot of places is you do get you'll get these stickers that goes and says retail price is $19.99, today's price $10.99. So that's the $10.99 would be set in the price list. The retail price list would be set as the $19.99. It's purely for promotions and for printing out and stuff like that. Is on premise. So is the store server on premise or is it in the cloud? Generally, that should always be ticked. And use the store scheduler service. If you use the store scheduler service, then you're actually emailing and SMSing out of the store, which may or may not be something that you want to do. You might want it all from enterprise. You might want it all from the store. The API server over here, this is to connect through for your API server. And this is part of the setup that is used for your mobile POS. This does need to be set up. You do need to go and set you can put an IP address over here, or otherwise you could go the full https:// whatever else it might be, whatever the address might be. We will come to that a bit later. Custom series, I explained custom series earlier. The reason this custom series is exactly the same as the enterprise series is because it's the enterprise with the store. Under normal circumstances, your custom series over here would be different for each of your stores. So if somebody creates a customer over here in this store, it will have a completely different customer code than the customer that's created over here in this store. And yes, I do know that there is the case where you get somebody who goes and opens up 2 different accounts under 2 different codes. even though it's the same name at two different stores. We do not validate against that. There may indeed be genuine valid reasons for why they want to do that. For us out here in South Africa, I know that this is what SPAR does with the SPAR loyalty cards. Their loyalty cards are loyalty programs are attached per store, not to SPAR globally, or at least that's how they are out here in the Western Cape. The other thing to consider as well is so that's one of the other things to consider is that also this goes and puts it all together. Once again, guys, can you Yusuf, please don't respond to the hand being up, rather go and actually type the question. That way I actually understand what's going on, and I can actually read it out to everyone else. Okay. Okay, so that's all set up over there. Registered management console. These will register the management consoles that are associated with the store. So you can actually see which ones are put here. You can delete them, and that will go and deallocate them from actually being set up at the store for which one they'll be attached to. Registered handheld devices. This is not POS. They're not mobile POS over here. It's not the handheld device. It's your mobile stocktake device that's attached there. Initialize eStore, that's associated with initializing your e-commerce store. And then finally, you can also set your price lists, what time. You can set your price list, what your price list name is, and when it's effective from. And then also, you can actually have multiples of these over here. So have one price list effective from a certain date, have another price list effective from another date, so it'll actually take over. And you don't actually need to be sitting there at 11 at night going and saying, I need to change this immediately as soon as it changes on midnight. And hopefully it replicates down, or otherwise we're going to get problems. No, this over here just automatically goes and ticks over and goes and says, okay, here's the new store price. Done. Okay. All right, and that actually covers the store setup over there, and that's taken up nicely to 12 o'clock. Guys, I think this is a good place to stop today. Are there questions? Question time. Right there. Is there something? Yusuf, is there a question? Okay, let's have a look. Do I have any questions popping up here? No, okay, around there. No, I think we're all good. Okay, guys, if there is no more questions, I am going to actually go and close the session. Thanks very much for joining us again for an exciting view of Into the World of iVend. I know you guys are all absolutely thrilled by this. I can see this is going to be topping the blockbuster charts, the movies soon. Thank you very much for joining me. Oh, and yeah, we will go and thanks, Yusuf. Okay. Guys, if anyone needs my email address, yeah, if you do have a question, it's mail me at keith.morrison@cityxsys.com. Okay. Yeah, there you go, Yusuf. You've got it now. All right. If you have any problems, please mail me at that. And yeah, we will go and I will try and get back to you as soon as possible. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Chat soon. Keep well. Bye.